What's up, you big, bearded, beautiful outlaws? Welcome to the Last American Outlaw channel. Again today, I am here with the last of the grown men.
Full grown
men. I mess it up every other time. I get it right sometimes. Last of the full-grown men, James Yeager.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming. So today, what I want to talk about is it was kind of weird that I had already been planning this before I even met you in person. And
Fill me in. Planning what?
Planning the series on my YouTube channel, The Last American Outlaw, The Ranch.
Okay.
And what I had in mind on The Ranch was it stemmed from the Bundy Ranch. And so I was 30 or 31 years old, and I had just got a job with a big insurance carrier, and I was working a storm in New York City. And I was at that time when I was like, I understood, but I didn't understand. I didn't have anybody to teach me to understand the significance of it. And I also had a job, and we were, so I wasn't a part of it. And it's one of the things that there are a couple of things that eat at me. One of them was, I really wish I would have joined the military. I really do. It's just something that always eats at me. I wish I would have done it. I didn't know the impact because the culture was different pre 9/11 versus post 9/11. And the other one was, I always felt like I should have been there. I always felt like there's other dudes there and I should have been there. So I've made a pact with myself. Like, if there's another overreach of anybody, I'll always be there to help. And so I started the idea of the Ranch series, and I said, hey, I remember people talking about being there and saying, we don't have a place to sleep. We don't have food to eat. We're running out of stuff. People don't understand that if it going to a major war, logistics win wars, right? Generals are masters of logistics. They're masters of feeding troops and getting them water and getting them boots and getting them, a toilet. They're masters at that. And that was a big thing that was missing there. And then I come to Raton. I take a class with you. I was sicker than a dog.
Yeah.
You even told me, you're like, dude, just come next year.
Yeah, you're like, shit.
And so I still came. And then I told you that I was going to do the ranch and just asking you a few questions about what it was that you guys were missing. And then you chimed in with this. I did this. And so could you tell us just a little bit about the whole Bundy Ranch situation, how significant it is in history, and just kind of go down that rabbit trail?
Well, for me, kind of Tarantino this a little bit and go back in time. So I found out about Ruby Ridge, and then I saw Waco burn, and, watching a building that the government set on fire that burns up women and children that they know are inside is horrifying. And so I told my wife, I was a cop, I told my wife, I said, never again. No, never again. So years later, Bundy happens, and we have another instance where federal agents are pointing guns at unarmed civilian family. And let me be clear. I love my country. Love it. I do not trust my government. And so I had some things to do at home. So as soon as I closed that business up, I took off for Bundy Ranch and wound up being invited to be Cliven Bundy's personal bodyguard. And a couple of things that happen. There's a whole lot of guys that make their living training folks, and none of them were there but me. None of them. So whatever that means, it bothered me that I was there by myself. And the main thing, the main historical perspective was, this is the first time in our country's history where a group of unorganized, undisciplined, untrained citizens with guns made the federal government pack up and leave.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So this is kind of, we're going to backstep just a little bit. I was just asking two of my guys if they knew what Ruby Ridge or Waco was, and the answer was, I don't know anything about Ruby Ridge. I kind of remember Waco, but I really don't know. They're both in their 20s, their early 20s. So kind of briefly touch on both of those and kind of, you don't have to go into the weeds, just kind of what were they?
So Ruby Ridge, the feds, ATF tried to entrap a man that lived up in Idaho, and when the entrapment didn't work, they shot his wife. They shot his 13-year-old son in the back and shot his wife, who was holding a baby, in the head. I mean, there were more details, but that was it.
Ruby Ridge, overstep of the government, big overstep. We had Waco, which was go ahead and touch on Waco.
So there's a church the government didn't like, so they set it on fire and killed people.
And really, that was like, you can go back and watch the Waco series, which I thought was a great series. And I think if you really don't know anything about it, you should. There's a lot of history to that.
The book written by the FBI negotiator, they made a miniseries for Netflix, but the book by the FBI guy is awesome. And I think tells the most balanced story.
So I didn't know that there was a book. I watched the Netflix series, and
it's based on the book by that negotiator.
Okay, I'm definitely going to read the book, and I recommend, guys, if you don't know anything about it, you should read that book and watch that series, because it really gives you that emotional where you can understand it and you can feel it, and you now see like that was a major overstep.
So a point I'd like to make is we don't have the burning of churches or the shooting of women holding babies unless there's a Democrat as president. So
there was a Democrat in office at the same time. There's another Democrat in office now. Nothing has been happened, but we always have the fear of, hey, there could be another overstep, which is why the Second Amendment is here, right?
Yeah.
Tell us what the Second Amendment, the purpose of it is. Is it hunting?
No, actually, the purpose of the Second Amendment is to, we just came out of a bad relationship with this dude over in England, and he tried to take our guns. And we knew if we didn't have any guns, we didn't have a vote. So if you don't have a gun, you're not a citizen, you're a subject. And so the Revolutionary War was fought over guns, wasn't fought over taxes, wasn't fought over, like what the thing that ignited the Revolutionary War was guns. And the shot heard around the world, it wasn't because it was loud, it's because it set into motion a series of revolts that changed every government in the world. Like the United States has the oldest governmental document of anyone in the world. So we are the oldest country in the world.
I think there's a lot of history on tyranny that we're not taught anymore.
Oh no, schools were started to teach civics and mathematics. And the first thing, we were number one in the world until the Department of Education was formed, I think in 1958. We were number one in the world until the feds took over.
Again, goes to why we don't trust the government, right? I don't know that they ever have our best interest at heart.
I love my country.
I love my country. I will tell you, in my time that I've spent with James, he really is a patriot. He loves his country. He even told me he believes his calling is to train people to protect themselves until the day that he dies. I was wondering if he was going to retire next year or not, but I don't think it's in you.
Nah.
All right. So what's really cool, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed with you is I'm 41. You're
51.
51. So my perspective of how I see life, you got to see at my age 10 years ahead of me. So you got to see basically the last decade that I didn't. So I said something today, which was really kind of crazy. I said, I think America today, we really put everything on being wealthy. And I don't think they did that 40 years ago. And you told me that that wasn't the case. That
in the 1980s, it was all about extravagance, wealth, living outside your means, cocaine, Ferraris, that was the 80s, man. It was extravagance.
Yeah. And then because I was a baby during the 80s, I didn't know, and so I really enjoy seeing your perspective. And I also enjoy the younger guys that we have with us, seeing their perspective of what they
don't have any perspectives. They're dumbass kids.
That's what I was saying, of what they don't know. Right. And they don't know. And it's kind of crazy. I've seen you give both my guys tips, just off the wall for no reason, just life tips. I think it's pretty awesome that you're doing it, and you've given me a lot of life tips, but there's just the experience. And I know there are other guys, the Clint Smiths of this world, the John Farnhams, that have even more experience. And one of the dangers of this next generation is they're so consumed with technology that they might forget to listen to some of those old stories because they teach a lot.
Oh yeah. I get called boomer all the time. I'm like, you even know what you're talking about? A boomer means anyone over 30, I think, is a boomer.
I think it's 28 now. So, all right, this is something, and I want your perspective on this. I believe our forefathers gave up their fortune, their real estate, their families, and their lives. I believe today in America, we are willing to give up our life verbally for America. And I know some of us are, because we join the military or we work as a police officer, first responder. So we're willing to give up our life. We're even willing to give up our families because we will send our kids to the military. We'll allow them to go. We'll send them into law enforcement. What I don't know that Americans are willing to give up anymore, or is a dying trade, is their fortune and their real estate. I'm afraid that today we care more about stuff than we care about our freedom and our rights. And I think the dangers of that for our next generation are going to be tough. Give me your opinion on that.
I don't think it's changed. I think there were plenty of people. I mean, the Revolutionary War, less than, a single digit, and sometimes people say 3%. 3% of the population fought over a 1% tax rate. So that means 97% of the people during the Revolutionary War, which was our first Civil War, by the way. It's the first war where we fought countrymen against countrymen. That first off, apparently you don't need a whole bunch of people. You just need 3% to be really motivated. But I think with anything that we do, most people, if there's an emergency, people look around and say somebody should do something. And what I say to those people is, yeah, you.
I literally say the same thing, right? And it's something that I've always thought, well, I should have been at that ranch. I wasn't. I won't miss it. But
how I'm saying, unfortunately, there will be another opportunity.
I hope not, but I think you're right. But if you're willing to say somebody should do something, then really you need to do it.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, I wish this would be done, but I don't have the balls to do it. Whatever it is in life, it could be simple, right? It could be you're at work and you're mad at your boss, and you wish somebody would go tell your boss that they're not doing something correctly, or they're treating you like, whatever. Well, you expect your coworkers, it's you. If you want somebody to do it, then you need to do it.
So one of my favorite quotes ever is by Albert Einstein. And Einstein said, "To be a warrior means to be genuine every moment of your life."
I think Albert Einstein was a genius, but I mean, if you really think about that, that's a tough. I could see that in my heroes, right? And that's something that you got to say, I got to strive for every day in myself, which isn't easy.
Right?
Yeah, it really isn't easy. All right. So, let's go back to touch just a little bit on the Bundy Ranch. What happened there?
So again, I was doing close protection for Cliven. So I was not at the infamous bridge, at the wash or whatever, the standoff. But that was an amazing event, in my opinion. You have all these people. First off, the citizens had an overwhelming advantage in position and manpower. And the fact, so the first shot fired in a Revolutionary War, the one that started it, there is still some debate as to which side fired the first shot. Could you imagine if somebody would have had a negligent discharge? What would have happened?
I mean, if you just pause and think about that for a second, it would have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
It would have been catastrophic for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the whole country, the whole world.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole world. It would have been catastrophic.
It would have been the second shot heard around the world, for sure.
Yeah.
And so thank God, that didn't happen. Thank God cooler heads prevailed. I think it was a bigger win that the feds left. I think it was a bigger win.
I agree. I think if you can resolve a conflict peacefully, you should exhaust all measures to resolve it peacefully.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And that's an example of when there's a gun, there's a real danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a real danger. So here's some questions I have. Had I wanted to show up to the ranch or wanted to prepare for it, what is some things that I personally should have to prepare to mutually assist a friend in a future date?
Well, first off, make sure that you don't become a refugee. So imagine you're going to go backcountry camping for a week. Take what you would take for that. Imagine being totally self-sufficient for a week.
Yeah, so I need a tent. I need changes of clothes.
Whatever. You might sleep in your truck. I'm saying, like, you might need a bucket to go in. You might need, water,
food. You need food.
Yeah, all
right?
that.
Pizza Hut's not delivering at that time, right?
I don't know. I got a pizza delivered in Baghdad while gunfire was happening every day, so that's,
Yeah. I guess I figured they would have blocked that off, but that's cool to know. I didn't know that. Was there the same kind of tasting pizza we have here? That's crazy.
It was close. It was Pizza Hut.
Oh, it's Pizza Hut. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know they had Pizza Hut in Baghdad.
But you should take your own food.
You should take your own food. That's awesome. All right. When I show up.
I said Baghdad, Basra in southern Iraq. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Somebody's going to call me on that. Yeah, that was in Basra.
Yeah, we love those guys. All right. So when I show up, you've been with me. I'm pretty solid squared away guy. Mm-hmm. Am I in charge?
Oh, you mean if you show up at Bundy? If you look around and say somebody should be in charge, that's you.
Yeah, but when you get there, you shouldn't come there with I did this, so I'm in charge, right?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I come in there and say, where can I help, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if your level of help leads to a role of leadership, great, but we don't ever want to get in the situation where we have too many chiefs, not enough Indians, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Is that PC to say? I don't even know if I can say that anymore. Who cares? We're saying it.
Yeah.
It's my podcast, James. All right. So we need what we need to be self-sufficient for camping. We need.
That was just an example.
No. I agree. There could be a lot of things, but the idea of it, which is what I had the idea originally when I was making the ranch series, and I asked you about it, was, hey, I need to go there. I need to be able to take care of myself. I need to be able to have some place to sleep. I need to be able to have warm clothes. I need to have change of clothes. I need to be able to have proper clothing for the situation. And if I have extra, I need to bring extra, because logistically, there's not a lot of resupply. And had there been an ND, there would be no resupply, right?
Right.
And so I think that that's a key factor. And I think because you were boots on the ground, there's probably very few people that can be as, like, have a clear perspective on, if you want to mutually assist somebody, what to do and how that bleeds over. This bleeds over a lot too. I have been to a lot of hurricanes. I've been to every major hurricane since 2010. And I've been down there responding to damage. And in all of those instances, that same kit, whenever you had to leave, would be really nice to have. You know what I mean?
Right.
So none of this stuff is like, oh, I'm not going to, take care of these things because anticipating another ranch situation or mutual assistance. Shoot, I might just need them to go camping, or I might need them to leave a hurricane or an earthquake, Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just like to see your perspective on people showing up. And I just think it's really key to say, don't be a refugee when you get there. Right.
A friend of mine says this all the time: be an asset, not a liability.
Yeah. Asset, not a liability. And so one of those things that I think is really important is, just because you own a gun doesn't mean that you can fight with that gun, be safe with that gun, understand when to use that gun and when not to use that gun, and understand how to not have that negligent discharge. But the question I have is, why is it that and I know it's the majority, because you had something like 6,000 students last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the majority of gun owners don't seek training.
Yeah, of course.
Why?
Most of the time, because they buy a gun as a magical charm. They think, oh, I've done now, But basically, we as firearms instructors represent fear, pain, and death. Like, they don't want to think about us. They don't want to think about the gravity of actually using a gun. They just want to have it as a magical charm, just to stay in the drawer, keep me safe over there. They won't actually think about getting blood or brains on them when they shoot somebody close and their bodily fluids fly over the face. They won't think about that. It's too much.
Wow, I never thought about that. And that kind of opens me up to see why people say, I want this gun. I want a safety on this gun. I'm not going to leave this gun loaded. I just want to put it up in the closet, because for them, ignorantly, they feel protected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely ignorance. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely ignorant. When I was in law enforcement, I got to see both sides. I got to work in the jail. I got to work in the jail. What a miserable.
Oh yeah. It's like, if you work in jail for a year, it's like a 6 months prison sentence.
Oh my gosh, it was miserable. Everything was so sticky inside there. It was so gross. Oh, I hate the jail.
Maybe you should have been mopping.
It didn't matter. Everything was sticky. Everything you touched.
Okay, let's talk about something else.
Anyway, so it's like we have the ability to see the worst 15 minutes of people's lives. Great people, worst 15 minutes of their life. So I think it gives us another perspective that we have got to see a lot of bad that the world has to offer. So it gives us a more heightened awareness to it, right? But it's okay to watch it on TV and it's okay to play it on the video game, but to really bring it down to real life, I think you're right. I think that it's just something that you would rather tune out. Most people would rather tune it out than face the fact that it might happen to them.
Most men are born thinking they know how to shoot, drive, fight, and fuck. And most men aren't very good at any of those things.
Fail at all of them, huh?
When you think about it, like, I don't know about young women, but women, my age think that men should know how to change the tire, change the oil in the car, hang a new ceiling fan. They think we're supposed to know this crap. So we're not going to say we don't.
No, that's true, right? That's like if your wife tells you we need to hire a handyman for this,
That's an insult.
yeah, that's like nah, challenge accepted. You shouldn't mess with that wireless. Hire an electrician. Oh. All right, so I know we went down some wormholes. Let's go back to.
But hold on a second. So that brings me back to the wife says, I should get some training. And the husband that doesn't know anything, that didn't even watch John Wick, now becomes a firearms instructor.
Oh, I'll tell you what, though. I felt like after watching John Wick that, well, at least he was a bad dude.
Well, pretty awesome.
So I don't know if y'all haven't watched John Wick. You should watch them all
If
because
they
they're
haven't
great.
watched John Wick, they're definitely not watching your video.
They're probably not here, right? So everybody's watched John Wick except for these guys.
You
They haven't
just
watched.
assume that. They don't watch your videos. The guy that's recording it's asleep.
All right, that's awesome. All right, let's go back to. I want to go back to the history of the Bundy Ranch because I think that it's something that could be easily lost, and how important that situation was where armed citizens were able to turn the government back, but cooler heads prevailed. So I know we both hope that in our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes, this would never happen again. What is some advice that you would have for people that might want to come and be a part of that, or people before they get there, or people to prepare for that?
If you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. Yeah, I want to stand between armed federal agents and an unarmed family. I didn't go to kill anybody. I went to be a human shield between those people.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome answer to be able to say. I'm just there to be the shield. Yeah, I'm the bulletproof vest. And there's not a lot. Well, I mean, we know from there's not a lot of people willing to do it.
Well, let me just say this before it gets kind of lost. Mr. and Mrs. Bundy are some of the most humble and wonderful people I've ever met in my life. They invited me to sit and eat with their family at the family table. They, more than once, he let me interview him and took plenty of time and answered every question. And just some of the most salt of the earth. And I know that term might be cliche, but I mean it, salt of the earth people. And his family had used that land since 1877. And then somewhere around 100 years later, the federal government came in and told them they had to start paying for it. He said no.
One of the things I really appreciate about Mr. Bundy was he said no and he stood on it.
Yeah.
That goes back to your being genuine. I'm going to be just dead honest with myself here and say, I don't know if I would have been able to stand up. I might have just been like, dang, and gave it up because, what a hard decision.
Well, it's the desert. He's a cattle farmer. I don't know how that works, but he took us around, showed us what the animals ate. And then they actually prepared us, Bundy beef for dinner one night. And you know how that went? It was horrible. It was horrible. It was the toughest, grimiest beef I've ever eaten in my life. But I supported his right to keep making that horrible meat. It's terrible.
Nevada cows don't taste bad, so they need more water. They need more water. All right, guys. So to kind of wrap it up here, there's a possibility that we may have to mutually assist somebody we care about or our countrymen in the future. And I think the best thing to take away from it is the advice that James has of don't be a refugee. Don't be a refugee, and you're there to be cooler heads and be a shield. And also there's a lot of I don't know the words to say, a lot of reaching into your heart and your beliefs and your morals to decide whether or not you're going to go there, because you know that situation, one, is a part of history, but two, could be a bad part of history. And those events could happen very bad and change everybody's life, good or bad.
There was one really cool part about being out there. I got interviewed by MSNBC, and I got to quote Plato and Ice Cube.
Like the Ice Cube?
Yeah.
Like the Ice Cube. What's the quote?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I know the quote. Okay, I got it.
No, Plato said it's not difficult to get a man to go to war. It's difficult to get him to go back.
Are you itching for a fight?
No, not at all. And, I've been in a fight before, and Plato said it best. It's easy to get men to go to war. It's hard to get them to go back. The last thing I want to do is be in another firefight.
And then, of course, today was a good day. I didn't have to use my AK.
Who doesn't love Ice Cube? I wouldn't have thought James listened to Ice Cube.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, I'm just playing. I know it. All right, guys. So, I appreciate you listening to the podcast, James. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate that you were there in place of us who I feel like should have been there with you.
Next time.
Next time. Hopefully there's not a next time.
Hope in one hand, shit in the other.
Yeah. But we will be. And it's just something that I think it happened long enough ago, and there's a new generation of people who don't understand it. And I want to bring it to the forefront again on your minds of our community to be thinking about it. And that's why I did the series. And there's still a series about the gear that we are reviewing to put together, to try to put together this system that I would personally use to bring so I wasn't a refugee. And so check us out on YouTube, Last American Outlaw. Check out Tactical Response and James Yeager on YouTube. James, again, we appreciate you very much.
Glad to be here.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Last American Outlaw podcast. Stay tuned.